Have you ever wondered why some people seem to recover quickly, maintain their energy as they age, and stay mentally sharp well into their later years, while others struggle with fatigue, inflammation, slow recovery, and accelerated aging? Most people assume aging is simply a matter of getting older. They think lower energy, increased aches and pains, slower metabolism, and declining resilience are unavoidable. But what if many of those changes are connected to something happening much deeper inside your cells? What if your body's ability to produce energy, repair damage, and control inflammation depends heavily on a single molecule that most people have never heard of? That molecule is called NAD. NAD, short for Nicotinamide Adenine Dinucleotide, is one of the most important compounds in human biology. Every cell in your body depends on it. Your brain uses it, your muscles use it, your liver uses it, your immune system uses it. Without adequate NAD, your cells struggle to create energy, repair DNA, regulate inflammation, and maintain healthy mitochondrial function. Here's what's really going on inside your body. As we age, NAD levels tend to decline in many tissues. At the same time, inflammation rises, mitochondrial efficiency falls, recovery slows, and the body's repair systems become less effective. Researchers now consider declining NAD availability one of the major contributors to biological aging and metabolic dysfunction. Recent research continues to highlight the connection between NAD metabolism, inflammation, mitochondrial health, and healthy aging. Think of NAD like the rechargeable battery that powers your body's repair crew. If the battery is fully charged, the crew can repair damage, generate energy, and keep everything running smoothly. But if the battery gradually drains year after year, the repair crew slows down. Small problems become bigger problems. Recovery takes longer. Inflammation lingers. Energy production becomes less efficient. The exciting news is that lifestyle choices have a profound impact on NAD biology. In this video, we're going to break down exactly how NAD works, why it declines, how chronic inflammation accelerates that decline, and most importantly, the science-backed strategies that may help support healthy NAD levels naturally. We'll cover fasting, exercise, sleep, nutrition, NAD precursors, mitochondrial health, and the common mistakes that quietly drain your cellular energy reserves every day. And by the end of this video, you'll have a practical roadmap you can start using immediately to support recovery, improve metabolic health, and potentially slow some of the processes associated with aging. Let's begin with the 6 key insights you need to understand. Before we talk about boosting NAD, we need to understand why this molecule is so important in the first place. Because if you don't understand what NAD actually does, it's impossible to appreciate why scientists are paying so much attention to it in the fields of aging, metabolism, inflammation, and longevity. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every second of every day, trillions of cells are producing energy. Your brain needs energy to think, your muscles need energy to move, your heart needs energy to beat. Even while you're sleeping, your cells are working around the clock. And NAD sits at the center of that entire process. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine every cell in your body is a power plant. Inside that power plant are mitochondria, the tiny structures often called the cell's energy factories. Their job is to convert nutrients from food into usable cellular energy, known as ATP. NAD functions like an electrical shuttle. It carries electrons from one biochemical reaction to another, helping mitochondria extract energy from carbohydrates, fats, and even ketones. Without enough NAD, the energy production line slows down. The raw materials are there, but the machinery cannot operate efficiently. This is one reason people with impaired cellular energy production often experience fatigue, poor exercise recovery, brain fog, and reduced resilience to stress. But NAD does much more than help produce energy. It also activates proteins called Sirtuins, sometimes referred to as the body's longevity enzymes. These proteins help regulate inflammation, mitochondrial function, DNA repair, metabolic flexibility, and healthy aging. Research continues to show that sirtuin activity depends heavily on adequate NAD availability. Think of NAD as both the fuel transporter and the maintenance manager. It helps generate energy while simultaneously coordinating repair and quality control. When NAD levels are sufficient, cells can better respond to stress and repair damage. When NAD levels decline, repair systems become less effective, inflammation becomes harder to control, and cellular aging can accelerate. What the research shows is that many age-related changes are associated with declining mitochondrial efficiency and disruptions in NAD metabolism. Scientists are increasingly studying ways to support NAD as a strategy for maintaining metabolic health and healthy aging. So the first lesson is simple. NAD is not just another supplement trend. It is one of the fundamental molecules that allows your cells to create energy, repair themselves, and function properly. And if this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. Every day, I break down complex metabolic and longevity science into practical tools you can actually use to improve your health. Now that you understand why NAD matters, the next question becomes even more important. Why do NAD levels decline in the first place, and why does inflammation make that decline happen faster? Now let's answer one of the most important questions in longevity science. If NAD is so critical for energy, recovery, and cellular repair, why do our levels decline as we age? Many people assume aging is simply the passage of time, but biologically speaking, aging is often the accumulation of damage combined with a reduced ability to repair that damage. And NAD sits right in the middle of that equation. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Throughout your life, your cells are constantly exposed to stress. Some of that stress is normal and healthy, like exercise or short periods of fasting, but much of it comes from chronic sources: poor sleep, excessive calorie intake, blood sugar instability, environmental toxins, alcohol, chronic infections, and persistent inflammation. Every time your cells experience damage, they activate repair systems. One of the most important repair systems involves enzymes called PARPs. These enzymes help repair damaged DNA, which is essential for maintaining healthy cells. The problem is that PARPs consume large amounts of NAD. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your body has a repair budget. Every day, damage occurs and the repair crew spends money fixing problems. If the damage is small, the budget remains healthy. But if damage becomes constant, the repair crew starts spending more and more resources. Eventually, the budget begins to run low. That budget is NAD. As inflammation and cellular stress increase, the demand for NAD rises dramatically. At the same time, aging often reduces the body's ability to recycle and regenerate NAD efficiently. This creates a vicious cycle. Lower NAD leads to weaker cellular repair. Weaker repair leads to more damage. More damage triggers more inflammation. More inflammation consumes even more NAD. Researchers have also identified enzymes such as CD38 that become increasingly active with age. CD38 breaks down NAD, and studies suggest that chronic inflammation may contribute to higher CD38 activity, further accelerating NAD depletion. This helps explain why chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging, has become one of the central concepts in longevity research. The goal is not simply to boost NAD with a supplement. The real goal is to reduce the factors that are draining your NAD in the first place. That means controlling blood sugar, improving sleep quality, reducing excess body fat, minimizing chronic stress, avoiding excessive alcohol consumption, and addressing sources of ongoing inflammation. Because if you're constantly draining the tank, no amount of supplementation can fully solve the problem. Root cause thinking always wins. Before we focus on increasing NAD production, we must first reduce unnecessary NAD consumption. And that brings us to the next major piece of the puzzle, the mitochondria. Because when NAD declines, your cellular power plants begin to struggle, and that's where many people first notice fatigue, slower recovery, and signs of accelerated aging. Now let's connect the dots between NAD, mitochondria, recovery, and the aging process. Because this is where the science becomes incredibly practical. Most people notice aging through symptoms. They notice lower energy, slower workouts, more soreness after exercise, longer recovery times, reduced mental focus, increased fatigue after stressful days. But those symptoms often start much deeper at the cellular level. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Inside nearly every cell are mitochondria, the tiny energy-producing structures responsible for turning food into usable energy. Some cells contain hundreds of mitochondria, others contain thousands. Your heart muscle is packed with them. Your brain depends on them. Your muscles rely on them every time you move. And mitochondria require adequate NAD to function efficiently. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a city powered by thousands of power stations. The mitochondria are the power stations, and NAD is the electrical wiring that allows energy to move through the system. If the wiring starts deteriorating, the power stations can't operate at full capacity. The stations still exist. The fuel is still available. But energy production becomes inefficient. That's exactly what can happen when NAD availability declines. The result isn't just lower energy, it also means increased production of oxidative stress, slower repair, impaired metabolic flexibility, and reduced resilience to physical and mental stressors. This is why mitochondrial health has become such a major focus in longevity research. What the research shows is that healthy mitochondria are strongly associated with better metabolic function, improved physical performance, healthier aging, and greater resistance to chronic disease. Supporting NAD availability appears to be one important mechanism for maintaining mitochondrial efficiency throughout life. Now here's the encouraging part. Mitochondria are highly adaptable. They respond to your lifestyle choices every single day. When you exercise, mitochondria receive signals to become stronger and more numerous. When you sleep deeply, mitochondrial repair increases. When insulin levels remain chronically elevated from constant eating, mitochondrial efficiency often declines. When you practice periods of fasting, your cells activate pathways that encourage mitochondrial renewal and cellular cleanup. In other words, your daily habits are constantly sending instructions to your mitochondria. Either become stronger and more efficient, or become less efficient and age faster. This is why recovery is such a powerful marker of health. If you're recovering well, your cells are likely producing energy efficiently. If recovery is consistently poor, it's often a sign that something deeper, sleep, inflammation, insulin resistance, mitochondrial function, or NAD metabolism, needs attention. And if this is helpful so far, consider subscribing. Every day, we break down the science of metabolism, longevity, hormones, and fat burning into practical strategies you can apply immediately. The good news is that one of the most powerful ways to naturally stimulate NAD production doesn't come from a bottle. It comes from strategically changing when you eat. And that's exactly what we'll explore next when we discuss fasting, metabolic flexibility, and NAD optimization. If there is one lifestyle strategy that consistently shows up in discussions about longevity, metabolic health, and cellular repair, it's fasting. Not because fasting is magic, but because it creates a biological environment that encourages your cells to become more efficient. And one of the key molecules involved in that adaptation is NAD. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Most people spend very little time in a true energy deficit. Between snacks, beverages, desserts, and frequent meals, insulin levels remain elevated for much of the day. When insulin stays elevated continuously, the body remains focused on storing and processing incoming fuel. Cellular repair takes a backseat. Now compare that to a period of fasting. As insulin levels begin to fall, your body gradually shifts from relying primarily on incoming glucose toward accessing stored energy. Fat breakdown increases, metabolic flexibility improves, cellular stress response pathways become more active. One of those pathways involves changes in NAD metabolism. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine a company that is constantly receiving deliveries. As long as new shipments keep arriving every hour, employees stay busy unloading boxes and organizing inventory. There is little time for maintenance, cleaning, or upgrades. But when deliveries temporarily stop, the team can finally repair equipment, remove waste, and improve efficiency. That's similar to what happens during fasting. Instead of constantly processing incoming calories, your cells can redirect resources toward repair, cleanup, and adaptation. Research suggests that fasting and calorie restriction can influence NAD-dependent pathways, including sirtuins and other cellular repair mechanisms associated with healthy aging and metabolic resilience. This doesn't mean everyone needs extreme fasting protocols. In fact, consistency matters more than intensity. For many people, a simple 12 to 14-hour overnight fasting window is a great starting point. For example, finish dinner at 7 p.m., eat breakfast at 8 or 9 a.m. That's it. No complicated rules, no starvation, just creating enough time for insulin to decrease and repair pathways to become more active. More experienced individuals may experiment with a 16 to 8 schedule a few times per week, assuming it fits their health status and lifestyle. The goal is not to see how long you can avoid food. The goal is to improve metabolic flexibility. Because a metabolically flexible body can efficiently switch between glucose and fat for fuel, reducing energy crashes and supporting healthier cellular function. To maximize the benefits, prioritize protein-rich meals, avoid late-night snacking, stay hydrated, maintain resistance training, and focus on nutrient density when you do eat. Remember, fasting isn't about deprivation. It's about creating strategic periods of recovery for your metabolism. And if this is helping you think differently about aging and energy, consider subscribing. Every day, I share practical, science-based strategies to help you optimize your health naturally. Next, we'll look at the specific foods, nutrients, and NAD-building compounds that may help support your body's ability to maintain healthy NAD levels as you age. Now that we've covered energy production, inflammation, mitochondria, and fasting, let's talk about the question most people are asking. What can you actually eat or supplement with to support healthy NAD levels? The answer is surprisingly straightforward. Your body is designed to manufacture NAD on its own. The goal is not to force NAD production artificially. The goal is to provide the raw materials and metabolic conditions your body needs to produce and recycle it efficiently. Here's what's really going on inside your body. NAD is continuously being used, recycled, and rebuilt. To maintain this cycle, your body requires specific nutrients, particularly forms of vitamin B3. These include nicotinamide, nicotinic acid, nicotinamide riboside, NR, and nicotinamide mononucleotide, NMN. Think of these compounds as building materials delivered to a construction site. The workers may be skilled, but without enough materials, construction slows down. Similarly, your cells need adequate nutritional inputs to maintain healthy NAD metabolism. Let's start with food first. Many viewers immediately jump to supplements, but nutrition remains the foundation. Foods that naturally provide NAD supporting nutrients include beef and lamb, wild-caught fish, chicken and turkey, eggs, milk and dairy products, mushrooms, peanuts and legumes, avocados. These foods contain nutrients involved in NAD production pathways and support overall metabolic health. But food alone isn't the whole story. Your body also requires minerals and cofactors that support mitochondrial function and energy metabolism. This is why a nutrient-dense diet consistently outperforms isolated interventions. Now let's discuss supplements. Among the most researched NAD precursors are NMN and NR. What the research shows is that both compounds can increase NAD levels in humans, although researchers are still investigating the long-term implications for healthy aging, performance, and disease prevention. The important takeaway is this: higher NAD levels on a lab test do not automatically guarantee better health outcomes. This is where many people get confused. You cannot supplement your way out of chronic sleep deprivation, insulin resistance, excessive alcohol intake, or poor nutrition. The lifestyle foundation must come first. If someone is considering NAD supporting supplements, they should think of them as an addition to a healthy metabolic environment, not a replacement for one. A practical daily foundation might include a high-protein breakfast or first meal, adequate dietary B vitamins, regular resistance training, consistent sleep, strategic fasting periods, and then, if appropriate, a carefully selected NAD precursor under professional guidance. Because the strongest NAD strategy isn't one pill. It's creating a body that naturally produces, recycles, and protects NAD every single day. And that leads us to the final major lesson: the everyday habits that either preserve your NAD reserves or quietly drain them faster than you can replace them. As we wrap up the science of NAD, it's important to understand one final concept. Building NAD is only half of the equation. Protecting it is the other half. Because many people spend their time searching for the perfect supplement while continuing habits that steadily drain their cellular energy reserves every day. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Your body is constantly balancing production and consumption. Think of NAD like money in a bank account. You can increase deposits through proper nutrition, exercise, sleep, fasting, and healthy metabolic function. But if withdrawals exceed deposits, the account still shrinks. And that's exactly what happens when chronic lifestyle stressors remain unchecked. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine trying to fill a bathtub while the drain is wide open. You can pour in more water. You can buy a bigger bucket. You can pour faster. But until you address the drain, progress will always be limited. For many people, inflammation is that drain. Poor sleep is that drain. Insulin resistance is that drain. Excess alcohol is that drain. Chronic psychological stress is that drain. One of the most overlooked NAD depleting factors is sleep deprivation. During deep sleep, the body performs extensive repair and recovery work. Hormones are regulated, mitochondria are restored, inflammatory signals are balanced. When sleep is consistently shortened, the body experiences higher physiological stress, poorer glucose control, and greater inflammatory burden. The same is true for chronic blood sugar instability. Frequent spikes and crashes create metabolic stress that can contribute to inflammation and increased cellular wear and tear. This is why one of the best longevity strategies is surprisingly simple. Keep blood sugar stable. Build muscle. Prioritize sleep. Manage stress. Move daily. Avoid excessive alcohol consumption. Maintain a healthy waist circumference. These habits may sound basic, but they directly influence many of the pathways involved in NAD metabolism and healthy aging. What the research shows is that people who maintain strong metabolic health tend to preserve mitochondrial function more effectively as they age. They often experience better energy, recovery, cognitive performance, and resilience. And if this has been valuable so far, consider subscribing. Every day, I share evidence-based strategies to help you optimize metabolism, hormones, fat loss, and longevity naturally. Remember, the goal isn't simply to increase NAD. The goal is to create an internal environment where your cells can efficiently generate energy, repair damage, control inflammation, and maintain resilience for decades to come. That's the real foundation of healthy aging. And now let's bring everything together into a practical action plan you can start using immediately. Let's recap what we've learned. NAD is far more than another longevity buzzword. It is one of the fundamental molecules that helps your cells produce energy, repair DNA, regulate inflammation, support mitochondrial function, and activate important longevity pathways. When NAD levels are healthy, your cells are better equipped to recover from stress, maintain metabolic flexibility, and generate the energy required for optimal function. But as we discussed, aging itself isn't the only reason NAD declines. Chronic inflammation, poor sleep, insulin resistance, excessive alcohol intake, persistent stress, and metabolic dysfunction can all accelerate NAD depletion. That's why root cause thinking matters. Instead of asking, how do I raise NAD? A better question is, what is causing my body to consume and waste NAD faster than it can replenish it? Because once you address the drain, supporting NAD becomes much easier. Remember the key strategies. Prioritize consistent, high-quality sleep. Build and maintain muscle through resistance training. Use strategic fasting to improve metabolic flexibility. Control blood sugar by emphasizing whole, nutrient-dense foods. Reduce chronic inflammation through healthy lifestyle habits. Consider NAD supporting nutrients and precursors as part of a larger metabolic strategy, not as a shortcut. Most importantly, understand that your mitochondria are listening to your daily choices. Every workout sends a signal. Every night of quality sleep sends a signal. Every nutritious meal sends a signal. Every period of metabolic rest sends a signal. Those signals determine whether your cells become more resilient or gradually less efficient over time. The encouraging news is that many of the factors influencing NAD are within your control. You don't need a perfect diet. You don't need expensive biohacking equipment. And you don't need dozens of supplements. You simply need consistent habits that support the body's natural repair and energy-producing systems. So here's your challenge. Choose one strategy from this video and implement it today. Maybe it's extending your overnight fasting window, maybe it's improving your sleep schedule, maybe it's adding resistance training 3 times per week. Maybe it's reducing the foods that destabilize your blood sugar. Pick one change and track how your body responds over the next few weeks. Because small improvements repeated consistently often create the biggest long-term results. If this video added value to your health journey, be sure to like the video and subscribe. Join our community of people committed to optimizing metabolism, energy, recovery, and longevity naturally. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.